settings are. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the first ever Lakekit Community Meeting. My name is Mike Engelson. I'm the executive director of Wisconsin Lakes. I guess I will be your host and Zoom wrangler for the evening. Got a bunch of people that many of you know, I think. We'll be introducing them as we go through the evening. We'll talk a little bit about Lakekit Communications. We'll get an update on where the program is going to be headed from Dan. We'll look at some features and plugin support from Jerry and Larry. Larry and Dan will talk about our platform, WordPress, and our editor, Elementor, and what's going on there. Stan's going to talk about getting the Wisconsin Lakes news feed, not just Wisconsin Lakes. It could be, you could use other sources of information as an RSS feed as if you like. And then we'll have plenty of time for some discussion at the end. So this is a good opportunity to get your questions answered. If you can avoid talking over speakers and other participants, one way to do that is by typing questions into the chat box, which if you don't know, it should be there should be an icon for that down at the bottom of the screen. We'll be monitoring those and can feed questions as they come up or save them for later. As I said earlier, it does seem like this is a pretty small group, so we probably will be able to have people unmute themselves once the presentations are done, which should take about 45 minutes if I shut up. And again, this session is being recorded. It'll be available for you afterwards on the Wisconsin Lakes YouTube page. Might be tomorrow or Wednesday before I get it up there, and Karen will send a link around to everybody so that they can see it. It will be a public video, so there's nothing private, I don't think, that's going to be on here, but keep in mind that it will be a public video, so if you say anything, everyone will be able to see it. Really quickly, if you don't know about Wisconsin Lakes, we are the statewide organization of lake organizations and individuals that care about our lakes in the state. We're sort of the association of organizations and also a conservation organization. We promote healthy lakes, we provide educational and technical assistance to lake organizations, and we advocate for sound science-based water policy. And we work with partners like the Extension Lakes Program, DNR, River Alliance, others to, in one way, we put on the Wisconsin Lakes and Rivers Convention, which will be next March. So mark that down on your calendars if you're interested, and you can find out more about that at wisconsinwaterweek.org. We're also, as you know, a member organization, so if you feel like donating, go to wisconsinlakes.org or give me a ring and we'll get you hooked up on that. So let's talk about Lakekit a little bit. Our mission is to provide an economical website platform that enables lake organizations to easily communicate with their communities and aid in the awareness of local and state issues. We really want to provide something that lake organizations that are sort of tailored to lake organizations, and able to help with that communications. This whole endeavor started almost 10 years ago now. 2015 was the year that Larry started this, just as a grassroots program that he started. In 2017, he came to Wisconsin Lakes and said, this is getting a little bigger. We're up to 17-ish sites. Maybe some extra support would be helpful. Would you be interested in taking this on? And we did. We really had the idea that this would be able to be like a way for us to communicate and build some sort of network, as well as provide this needed resource for helping groups grow web pages. In the last few years, as it's continued to grow, for those of you who have been with us for a while, you may know we encountered some technical challenges as we tried to improve the platform. You know, with any kind of endeavor, you take steps forward, you try things, sometimes they don't work, and you have to take a step back and try them again. So that's really what we did. And organizationally, Wisconsin Lakes kind of took a look at what is the future of the program and how does it fit in with us. And I have to give a shout out, a huge thanks to all the volunteers that are on the team that I will introduce here in just a moment, that have like they really stepped up and helped out make this happen because honestly, we would not have the capacity. I'm the only paid staff person of the organization. I don't think we would be able to maintain it without the help of these folks. And we have a great technical support person who I don't know if he's on. I think he may be joining us at some point, but if you haven't encountered Ken Justiniano with Northern Graphics Operations, he does a great job for us. And he's really been able, once we've sort of settled into this is what we're going to do in the platform we're going to use, we've been able to keep things pretty settled. And I'm happy to say that we have a continued commitment from the Wisconsin Lakes Board of Directors. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue as we are. We're above 40 member sites and we continue to grow with our volunteer team. So if each of you want to maybe wave while I say your name, you'll each get a chance to introduce yourself later too. So we've got Dan Johnson, who's our team leader and relative newbie to the team, but he has been great in sort of helping corral and set meetings and do that sort of thing. Then Larry Brasina is our creator and one of the trainers, has worked with many of you. Karen Reynolds does training and runs our communications, so she's the one that sends out the messages to you. Stan Spanuski is one of our great trainers. I forgot to mention all of your lakes, so you can mention them later because that's always important to know where people are located, right? And the newest of the new guys, Jerry Voigt. Jerry actually is the one that designed these slides. I think they look really nice and work really well. He kind of helped with some of our branding stuff for Lakekit too, that some of the changes that you've seen. Who's the next one on the line? It could be one of you. We are always looking for more volunteer help. I think all of our current crop can say that they didn't necessarily know a whole lot about websites or WordPress or Elementor when they started this, and it's a pretty simple process to get hooked into and be able to help out your other Lakekit users. Anybody want to chime in on anything, volunteer team? All right. And thanks to all of you who are on here or who are watching this later. You know, this map demonstrates the breadth of geographical spread. Each of those points is a lake that has an organization with a Lakekit site. So we're pretty spread across the state. And we have room to grow. So if you know other lakes in your area or have other people with lakes in other parts of the state, feel free to let them know because we do have room for growth. And with that, I will turn things over to Karen to talk about communications.
Thank you very much. My role largely involves communications with the Lakekit sites. I also do some training. I'm the person when a new site might be interested in Lakekit, I set up a Zoom meeting with them. We talk about it. And then if they decide to move forward with a Lakekit site, I connect them with one of the trainers, either myself or somebody else. We started sending quarterly email blasts this year in order to ratchet up our communications with the sites. And we're considering 2 additional ways to communicate with all of you. We had a forum at the beginning of Lakekit. A forum is a way for you to post a question on using the Lakekit site, the forums on the site. Pose a question to other Lakekit participants and to get some feedback from the Lakekit community. It was very little used. I remember Stan posting a good question and a couple people responded. But for the most part, what our sites have done is they tend to contact the person that trained them and ask a question. And that's worked fine. But if we were to have a forum, it would allow people all over the Lakekit community to comment. So we're looking at that. And we're also considering quarterly virtual workshops as a way to keep connected with the Lakekit community and give all of you a periodic opportunity to ask questions of the volunteer team. We'll be sending out in the next quarterly email blast a link to a survey asking if you might be interested in participating in a forum and also asking if you might be interested in participating in quarterly virtual workshops. That email blast will also have a link to the recording of this presentation. So you can look for those coming up shortly. And I think it's now over to Dan.
Yeah, that's right, Karen. There you go, Mike. Thank you very much. I want to give a little bit of a background on Lakekit, just kind of touch on a few things from it. One of the things that most people may not know is that WordPress, which is the foundation for the websites that we use, this is the main software that we use, is used in over 40% of all of the websites built. And so WordPress is highly used throughout the website and throughout the web. We use a version of WordPress that's called multi-site. Multi-site means that you can have multiple sites based off one instance of WordPress. And there is a back end and a front end. And the back end takes care of all of that nitty-gritty stuff that most people don't want to take and bother with. Such as maintaining plugins, keeping everything, all of the plugins up to date, keeping the software up to date, and things like that. It makes it much easier for each of the sites themselves then to have their site that they can customize the way that they would like to do it. We use a hosting provider called SiteGround, which is one of the key hosting providers that WordPress itself suggests that is used, and so it's a very well used and well known hosting provider. And Mike, if you want to go on to the next slide. From a support perspective, Mike is the main manager for it. We then have backend. We then have support for the backend, the front end, and the cloud hosting, which the cloud hosting is where the software itself resides. And that is done through Northern Graphics. And we have a person that we work with on a regular basis. And we also have regular meetings with him to talk about key topics. And some of those topics actually we're going to talk about tonight. And then we have the volunteer team. And these are the folks that Mike went over. And we work on maintaining the operations for it. We do training and we do general support, and we work with Northern Graphics on what direction we would like to head with Lakekit, and work on any updates and things like that. So why don't we go next to the next slide? So the current status, I mentioned SiteGround is our primary hosting provider. It is based on Google Cloud, and the service itself allows us to scale as we would like to scale. We are currently, the capacity and performance and the compute resources that we have are currently about 4 CPUs, 8 gigs of memory, and 40 gigs of hard drive. We're about at 17% usage of the hard drive, and I want to thank everybody for keeping your image sizes and file sizes and that as small as possible. It allows us to maintain a smaller disk space. And we've calculated, based on what we see as the utilization for Lakekit at this configuration, that we could support about 100 sites before we have to add additional resources to it. We do have the capabilities of being able to scale up the resources if needed, but we try to maintain the utilization and the amount of compute resources as is, just so we can maintain the costs and make sure the costs are as efficient as possible. The next slide, please. So our vision, Mike touched on the mission, but our vision, though, that goes right along with that. to try to provide a very cost-efficient nonprofit website platform that enables lake organizations to communicate to their members and also to communicate at the state level, to understand what's happening at the state level. And that's why we're tightly coupled with Wisconsin Lakes. Our goal is to have it fully financially supported by the organizations that use Lakekit, and I mentioned that's a goal. Um, and then that each of these sites have the ability to share information in different ways, because we realize that the times are changing, and there are different communication mechanisms that people like to use, even based on age group. And so we've been working very hard to make sure that we can support those different types of communication mechanisms, whether it be Facebook or X or TikTok or just email and blogs. We work very hard to support that. Jerry put together actually a flyer that shows what are some of the different um, types of capabilities that Lakekit has, and you can compare those to almost any other hosting platform or website platform that's out there, and see that we do cover the majority of those types of communication mechanisms on that. In addition to that, we provide the development training and support by the volunteers here. I know all of us have worked with people that are using Lakekit, either by bringing them up from the very ground zero or trying to add new features onto their website. And then we have a backup for that. If there's questions that we can't answer, well, and we rely on each other for this also, as if there's questions that come up that we don't know, we ask each other if they understand or know what is going on. And if they don't, then we have a backup, and we can go back to Northern Graphic Operations to help answer some of those questions. And the support we have there has been fairly quick. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, it's really what we're looking for is a social networking tool to help timely communication between Wisconsin Lakes and local organizations organizations to each other. And we would like to help any of the organizations that are working towards that and would need some assistance on how to do that. We're here to help you. And we would like to be able to take and provide the awareness of things that are happening at your level, within your lakes, to your lake associations and lake districts and that. And in addition to that, we think it's important to be able to show what's happening at the state level also. And I know Mike, he is involved in things well beyond the state level. And so it is, you have a resource that you can take and go to for those types of things if you have questions on that also. Next slide. So the current prices, if you are a member of Wisconsin Lakes, it's $125 a year. And all of those things mentioned are covered in that $125. If you're if you're a non-member of Wisconsin Lakes, then it's $175. And the fees, and if you look at these fees and then compare that to other website hosting, it's a pretty good feature list as far as things that get supported for that $125 or $175. You get the back end management of the environment. They do regular website backups. You get SSL, which is for security management. You get a unique website domain. You can have email addresses associated with that domain. If you're not using that capability, just let us know if you do want to have something like that. Access to the online training that we have up on lakekit.net. And if you haven't been there, take a look through that. There's some really good training material that's up there. And then access to Wordpress website professional for issues that can't be addressed by the volunteers. And that's what I mentioned was through Northern Graphics Operations. Okay. Next slide. This would be Jerry and Larry.
All right, thank you, Dan. Good evening, everybody. My name's Jerry. I'm probably a good example of a guy that had no clue and is and I, you know, less than 18 months ago, I hadn't done a thing with with developing a website, and my compadre in crime for Long Lake Association is on the participant group here with us tonight, Bruce Rux, and we set out to develop um, a new website, right? We had Bruce had developed a site, and we set out to develop a site. So, before I get into my features and plugins, just here's the plug for getting involved in something because you don't know, right? It sparked an interest in me, and I became involved in with Lakekit at the beginning of this year. And I've learned a bunch, which has been both rewarding from just learning something new, but also in a way that I can help people, which is something I've always taken great pleasure in. Uh, so let's talk about plugins. And WordPress is basically built to use plugins, and Lakekit maintains numerous plugins. And really, what we do that to provide our members a robust set of content opportunities. So when you sit down to design a website or redesign a website, and you think through, well, what do we want to do with that? What is it? What is our end in mind for that communication? And then how can we go about it is kind of the second question. And the plugins give you the features and the things for how to go about it. So, uh, plugin itself, again, you know, less than 18 months ago, I didn't know what a plugin was. Plugin was what you did to, put a electric cord into the wall. But in this environment, a plugin is a piece of custom code. It's basically like a little application or a little routine, using that old computer word, um, that in essence provides additional functionality to WordPress. And WordPress is basically maintained and it's freeware, and then individuals, companies can create these plugins, and they become available to anyone that's using a WordPress site. You can provide these for the features that you want to use, and there's different ones for different features, and there's numerous ones for certain things. Uh, so they all add some functionality or enhance the basics that WordPress provides. And the way I looked at it was like this cheeseburger you see here. WordPress is the burger, and the plugin is the cheese. Uh, you know, you can have the burger without adding the cheese, but heck, in Wisconsin, you got to have some cheese, right? So the plugins are, going to enhance what we're doing. So if I could have the next slide, um, we say that it enhances it, but the one essential plugin we have is Elementor. Elementor is a plugin. It's a plugin to WordPress. And basically it provides so much functionality in and of itself, um, that you can almost do everything you need to do just with Elementor. 17 million websites are built with Elementor. So it's uh, pretty entrained into web development. There's within Elementor itself 100 plus widgets. Widgets are just, again, they're little applications that let you do things to present content to the people that visit your website. Um, it also helps you design the site in terms of how the pages lay out, how you manage content on individual pages and menu systems and across pages. It's drag and drop, so it's pretty intuitive and easy to use once you get into it. All of this seems pretty intimidating in a way when you start. It was for me. But once you kind of get into it, it's almost just like using Word or any other thing that you commonly use, Excel, whatever it might be. You just kind of got to get used to the system and understand what it does with a little bit of practice, and it becomes more intuitive and kind of second nature as you go along. So, but one of the most important parts of Elementor that you get the advantage of through Lakekit is this responsive design. And what that really means is the website itself that you develop using Elementor, depending on what your user's viewing that site on, whether it's a laptop or a tablet or a phone, automatically adjusts to that. So if you're looking on your iPhone, or if you're looking on your iPad, it's going to adjust the content of your site to look properly on that ratio of screen, or um, the pixels that represent that size of device. So responsive design it's a huge thing. It used to be a problem, but it's almost automatic now through Elementor. Yes, you have to kind of check it when you're doing the design, and our volunteer team kind of reminds everybody to do that when they're first designing their sites, making sure it works. But it really is kind of a built-in wonderful feature of Elementor. So next slide, please. So in Lakekit itself, just so you are aware of what is provided through the service here, we have all these different features. You can provide a calendar tool, a document viewing tool. You can integrate e-commerce, so you can, have your membership fees in there, or you can sell t-shirts or whatever, depending on how sophisticated you get. You can do email marketing integration, galleries of photos and so forth. We can even do password protected pages. So if you wanted to have a members only page, you could set it up to do that. The newsfeed tool, which Stan's going to provide some more discussion of here in a minute, is a pretty cool tool that kind of really goes full circle to bringing the goal of working with Wisconsin Lakes into function, because we can get the news from Wisconsin Lakes, and it can be then transmitted through your website to everybody that comes to that website. And so it extends what Wisconsin Lakes reach, which is their goal in supporting the program. So we have these others, a posting tool, a slide viewer, social media integration, a weather widget that you can use as well, and then various different things you can do from within Elementor through Elementor widgets. So all these things are different ways for you to provide functionality. Many of them are managed through Elementor, but a number of these also are managed through additional plugins that we maintain for Lakekit. Can I have the next slide? So that gets to the maintenance of the plugins. WordPress, again, it's freeware. It's updated by the WordPress folks, and the people that make plugins to use on WordPress sites have to maintain those plugins as well to be compatible with the updated and current versions of WordPress. Now, sometimes plugins don't age well. The folks that maybe put them together don't update them correspondingly when WordPress is updated. So they can get kind of like moldy cheese, right? Plugins are the cheese to our cheeseburger, but if they're not maintained, they can get moldy. And when that happens, it's a risk. It's a risk for malware or some other problems. So we as a team go through those plugins regularly. We got about, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but I think it's close to 100, somewhere over 90, I believe, plugins that we have through the system. And we're reviewing those regularly and making sure they're not getting moldy, basically. So it may be at some point in time, we may ask any one of our member sites that we might need to have you redesign your page with a different mechanism to provide your content than the plugin you're using, if that plugin, goes bad, so to speak, and we feel like we need to replace it because it might become a risk. So that's an ongoing process. We haven't really encountered that yet, but just to set an expectation, as we go through this, we may in fact be asking some folks to do that from time to time. So I think that's it for me on this. And I'll turn it over to Dan and back to Dan and Larry.
All right.
Oh.
So just to add to that point, Jerry, that you mentioned, this is a website is software, and that's my background is software development, and software does get moldy, as you said, and you need to take and update it. And there's a number of things that the plugins is a really good example of that, as far as what things sometimes need to be updated, because there may be new plugins that replace some of the existing plugins, and there are valid reasons why the industry would want to move away from a plugin. The same thing goes for things that deal with like Elementor and the features within Elementor. Larry has done quite a bit of research on this and has taken a look at some a new feature that is coming within Elementor, and it's called containers. Typically, right now, when you build a website, it's built on sections and tables and columns and things like that. The industry is now moving more towards containers, and it is seen as the direction that WordPress is going to be going. That doesn't say that any of the existing sections and columns are not going to be supported going forward, because they will be supported going forward. And the community, the WordPress community, has made it real clear that sections and columns will still be supported. But as you build a new website, the direction would be to use containers. And containers is moving towards where that will be the default way for layout of content on a website. Larry, as I said, has done quite a bit of looking at this and what the impact is. They actually have a conversion tool where you can take an existing site and convert it to containers, if you would like to, or you can just leave the site as is for now. As Jerry has mentioned, in the future, WordPress may become more aggressive with that, but we don't see that happening as far as converting your sites to containers and that. We're looking at a workshop where we can focus in on containers, since it is going to be one of the primary tools within Elementor. And so we were thinking that might be a good topic to have as a workshop. And that's one of the things that Karen had mentioned. And we'll touch on some of the reasons why they're moving to containers on the next slide. And Larry, do you want to touch on this?
Sure. You've pretty much covered everything at this point. And we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about containers. Maybe I'll just mention that historically we've used sections and columns. A section is nothing more than a rectangular space in our design of a web page where we put layout elements such as widgets. And when we switch to containers, it's another rectangle, but containers offer a wide variety of ability to refine positions of your content components. So with containers, it's much more sophisticated. And as Dan has mentioned, there's no need to change from using sections and columns, as most of us have been using. But Elementor, as a leading edge developer, has moved towards containers and actually made it their default method for layout. And so we, as the volunteer group, feel like going forward, when somebody's going to build a new site in the future, that they should seriously consider doing it with containers. And as Dan has mentioned, we will help with that. And if there's enough interest going forward, we could put together a workshop that Karen mentioned to help you with learning how to convert your website to using containers. Moving to containers does involve a learning process, so I don't want to belittle what's involved. I'm still learning, but it is, as most things in the web, is an evolving situation. Nothing is totally permanent, and so introducing containers is another step along that way. I think that's all we need to say about containers today, unless there's an interest in the future to have a workshop with respect to them.
Before we leave that, I'll just say I maintain a website for the Wapaka Chain of Lakes District on Lakekit. That site started with sections, and as I continued to grow the site, I moved to containers. So our site actually contains both of them for the layout. And as I'm learning more about containers, I actually prefer to use containers because you have, as Larry said, much more control over where things are placed on the pages and that. So I think it will be an interesting topic to have as a workshop.
And maybe I'll just add one more thing, since you brought up the site you're doing. Our home, what we call our home base site, which is lakekit.net, we have now converted that completely to containers. So that's a process where we've been learning how to use containers as well.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and move on?
I'm Stan Smaniewski. I'm going to very briefly talk about RSS feeds. Stands for really simple syndication. It's used to share post and site content between websites. In the slide you see, that's my lake organization, Rock Lake, which is near Madison, and that's our homepage. And that highlighted area is where I stuck an RSS feed from Wisconsin Lakes. Next slide, please. So if you go to that, one of the news feeds, and click on it, it takes you to this other page. In this case, it's Wisconsin Lakes, and it's about the stewardship awards because that's what they have posted. So as Mike posts updates from Wisconsin Lakes, those feeds just come into there. Next slide, please. So at Lakekit, we're trying to do this community. We want to share with each other. People have a lot of different ideas out there, and it helps us when we work together on different issues, whether it's Eurasian water milfoil or zebra mussels or whatever. As advocates of Wisconsin Lakes, the mission, we encourage you to place the RSS feed. It's pretty simple to do. I'll cover it pretty quickly. It doesn't require maintenance because the place you're getting the RSS feed from is the one doing the work and the maintenance. It updates automatically and whenever they post new information. So there is a widget in Elementor, and it's in the WordPress widgets. And all you do is you type in that wisconsinlakes.org/feed. As you preview your site, you can see how it's going to look. You can adjust if you have 2 posts or 5 posts, whatever. You preview your work, save it. And we do have the instructions up on Lakekit now. So you don't have to memorize any of this because this will all be in the recorded session. But I did want to encourage you all to think about getting this on your pages. And Mike, back to you.
All right. Well, thanks to all of you. So I have two things to mention. One related to what Stan just talked about. If you're wondering, uh, I do have every intention of updating that feed more often than it will appear that I have recently. Over the summer, it's been in early fall, have been doing a lot of other things, and my communications has slipped a little bit, but there's a bunch of stuff that will be coming out. It's a great way to keep abreast of policy issues. So as we move past this election and we move into a new legislature, you'll be able to keep up to date with what's going on from a policy standpoint. It's also a great way to find out about events like that we participate in, like the Red Cedar Watershed Conference in Menominee, the Lakes and Rivers Convention in Stevens Point, Northwest Lakes Conference in the northwest part of the state, and on and on. So encourage you to take a look at that. I also meant to say at the very beginning of this, some of you may have gotten either an email from my QuickBooks system, and hopefully then got a follow-up from me saying that you shouldn't have got an email from my QuickBooks system saying that you still owe for your Lakekit invoice. You probably don't if you think you've paid it. If you do get that invoice and I haven't already clarified that that was sent in error, let me know and I can double check to make sure that we've got it. But I think all of you should have seen it. So apologize for all of that, and I appreciate the emojis that I'm getting in the chat. So looks like we've got a couple of questions in the chat. We'll take care of those, and then there probably will be time. I think we can actually have people open up their mics, and as I read these, if you want to flesh out your question, that's fine. But Mark asks, will a copy of the presentation be published and available? And the answer to that is yes, right, Karen? There will be something, we'll be able to provide the slides.
Yes, we can provide the slides too. After Mike uploads a recording of this session to the Wisconsin Lakes YouTube channel, he will provide the link to me. And then when we do the next communication, which will probably come out next week, I will include a link to the recording of this presentation. Does anyone feel like they need to see a PDF of the slides as well? Let me know in the chat. Thanks.
And then Bruce was wondering, can we upgrade to containers using the upgrade without posting to Lakekit just to test and examine it?
I'll try and answer that. The answer is yes. You could actually create a page and play with it, for example. But Lakekit also provides a playground where you can go through some lessons. And I will dig that up and include it in the chat so that anybody can look at that.
Perfect. Always nice to have a place to play where you don't mess stuff up, right?
Dan, you've said that you've got both containers and sections on your site, right? So you must have done, you must have a page, even if it's an unlinked page, that's like a test page where you've messed around with containers.
That's exactly right, Jerry. I've got a page that I don't display, like you said, that is not seen on if somebody goes to the website, that I play around with things. But then I have not finished the conversion to all containers on my site, and so I have a little bit of both.
Okay, so answering Bruce's question, you can have both exist on your website. Don't have to be one or the other.
Right. So you could start with one page and kind of just play around with it if you want.
What other questions do people have? There's nothing else that I see in the chat, I don't think. But feel free to just unmute yourself and ask a question if you have them. This is your opportunity.
I have a question. This is Cindy Moriarty. Hi, Karen. It's nice to see you again.
Hi, Cindy.
I have all of the training videos, and I haven't really needed to ask any questions to the group in the few years since I started with this. But I wonder if I'm getting all of the communications from the group. I haven't received any emails except the one announcing this. And so if you could check, I have like two different email addresses and I'm never sure which one I gave to people. So there was that. And then the other thing, a neighboring lake association to the one I'm in, their secretary did tell me in the spring that he had inquired about joining Lakekit. He has a website that he maintains by himself. And he had been told at that time that new members weren't being accepted, and now it seems like that has changed. So would it be okay for me to send him an email and tell him to try again? And if so, who would he send something to, Mike or to you, Karen?
To me,
So yeah, the answer is yes. We're accepting new sites, and yeah, contact Karen.
Okay, I will tell him to do that. His name is Dwayne Silkworth. He's on Pike Lake. And if they're
Sure.
still interested, I
oh,
will.
that name we know. I think we tried to contact him. Maybe we didn't have the best email address.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That
that's what
I
I'm
absolutely
thinking
know that
because
name.
I know we had reached out to him again. So
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll get in touch with him. He's part-time on the lake and part-time in Minnesota, and sometimes it's hard to keep both things together. But
Sure.
I'll send him a note tomorrow.
That'd be great. Yes, we are taking new sites.
Thank you.
other questions?
Yeah, Cindy, I put in the chats. Please send me the correct email address for you, because I've been sending it to the one that I have on file, but it might be an old one.
Mark asked where the training videos are on the site. How do we access them?
I haven't been able to find that, so I may have to find that after our session. And Mark, I'll send that to you by email. Or maybe we can include it with the link to this recording.
Sure, that probably makes sense.
Yep. Thanks, Larry. That'd be great. Thank you.
You know, Larry, I think what happened was that most of the videos were old. And I think most of them we took off the site because what we did is we incorporated as much as possible into the members only section under core lessons, the WordPress basics, using Elementor and working with menus. So there were a couple of videos that were duplicative, and we incorporated that training information into the lesson number 2 using Elementor.
I'm referring to something that Lakekit put out, but that gives us another route to make this available. We can put a link in the lessons that provide this link to some practice areas for containers.
Any other questions? We don't have to keep you around.
Yeah.
Uh,
This
there-
is Cindy again from Lake of the
Yeah.
Falls. I just want to say that if you're going to do regular trainings online, I would welcome that. I'd be really happy with that. Because I'm doing great with it so far, but I'm not doing anything new. And so I would be very happy with that.
And Cindy, you just hit on the point that I was gonna make, is that in our next email there will be the questions on that, and please respond to that to see if for what your interest is into having those regular training sessions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe I'd add one more point to that. We have a pretty good robust set of features, right, that I went through in the plugin section tonight. And not any one of us knows the ins and outs of all of those features. And so one of the things us volunteers are doing is, just like Larry is kind of digging in on containers, and Dan, but others of us may have developed some expertise or some familiarity anyway with one of the other features, so that as a team we can service any of the questions that come in without having to individually know everything about everything that's available. So it's a kind of a sharing basis on our part. That's an improvement that we're we're working on and working toward for everybody's benefit.
Hi, this is Terry. It seems a little bit as a lake district that life gets a little isolated with having difficulty finding people with the same problems. Do you have a kind of a ballpark of how many people within Wisconsin lakes represent lake districts as opposed to other types of lake organizations?
Yeah, I would say we have about 250 organizational members, and I think it's split pretty evenly between associations and districts, if not slightly balanced towards districts at this point. If you have questions, feel free to send them about district stuff. Feel free to send them to me or to our info box. If I can't get to answering them, my board president Dan Butkus, he is secretary for a district up north and has encountered a lot of the issues that people encounter and is happy to talk to them. The other thing you can do is reach out to the Extension Lakes program. Eric Olson is pretty well versed in districts as well. We have tried to come up with a good way to like connect districts to districts online. I have thought about the idea of maybe hosting some just some lunchtime chats where if people had the ability to just jump on for half an hour and have an open discussion. If they had particular questions, we can discuss them. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you or to anyone else on here, let me know, whether it's their district questions or association questions or whatever.
Yeah, we recently met as part of Oconto County, all the lake districts in the county, and that was extremely valuable for us. And if it can be encouraged on a broader level, and if I could participate on a broader level, I'd certainly be interested.
Yep, and if you can, another great resource is to come to the Lakes Convention, if you can. If it's a funding issue, there are sometimes sponsorships or scholarships available. So
No, we'll be there.
make sure to check that out, because if you haven't done the training, if you're a commissioner and you haven't done the training yet, there, definitely check that out. And there might be some of the Lakekit people there too. So.
Bruce, you asked about containers upgrading without posting to Lakekit.
Yes.
Karen put a link a little above your chat that you can go to that gives you links to more information about using containers.
That and when Larry was talking about that, I appreciate the fact that we don't take as much space on the internet and have it more efficient, and I like that. So this changeover, I think, is beneficial for not only Lakekit but for our websites. More information using less space. Did I misinterpret what Larry said?
I'm not sure if there's a space difference. The main point that Elementor has made is that it's a increased speed, so it doesn't take near as long to load a website if you use containers. I'm not sure that it uses a significantly amount less of space.
I'm interpreting the speed with the accuracy and the orderliness of the instructions digitally. So I think that sounds good.
Yeah, the main thing about the containers is that you have much more ability to position your components in your web page exactly where you want it. Whereas with sections and columns, you're more limited. You have to accept what you get more. But there is a learning curve.
You're right, right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Anything else? I think maybe we have answered all of the questions, and so everyone's ready to go forth and um, do new things with their site, and hopefully make sure to watch for that email from Karen with the link to the video. If you want to share it with other people, if you want to share it with other people from other lakes, feel free to do that. And also to find out to get the link to that survey so that we know if there is enough interest to do some of these other things that we will do. And I second what people are posting in the chat. Again, thank you to all of the volunteers that are on here because, as you can see, they have learned a lot and are doing a really, really incredible job that would not be done without their help. So, here to all of you. And with that, I'm gonna end the recording. So, for those of you who are watching this back, thank you and have a good evening.